back with another new episode of the Last Wave Podcast. We dive into topics like ghosts, UFOs, cryptids, nerd stuff, and conspiracies. As always, thanks for listening. It means a whole lot to us. Check out our Facebook page, as well as our Twitter and Patreon.com. Patreon is a subscription service that helps content creators like myself. It's very cheap, like $1 a month cheap, so it's a really good way to show your love for the show. Basically, it's an easy way for us to continue to do what we do and make a little bit of money doing it. But yeah, check out our social media accounts. We're basically everywhere. Same name, same picture. Real quick, I do want to say today we're using one of the new title slides. So I'm hoping that comes through okay. I'm hoping that looks all nice. So we'll see how it picks up. We'll see how it looks. But again, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to go over the Shetland Wulver. Now, if you don't know what that is, don't worry, I'll explain it here in just a second. You'll be just as confused as I was. So honestly, I had never heard of the term Wulver and it's Wulver, as you can see on the title slide, until I came across this story. A few websites had information on them, but realistically, it would be easier to describe them by their more worldly name, as werewolf. The story I chose to talk about here is the Shetland Wulver, a report of an island near Scotland that was home to at least one, if not a family, of these Wulver. The interesting thing about this creature is that it is said to just have a wolf head, but the rest of the body is human-like. It also did not change its form. The wolf head in the human body was just its natural state. Also, these creatures are not just reported, they are recorded in books. In her 1933 book, Shetland Traditional Lore, the noted folklorist Jessie Margaret Saxby wrote, "The Wulver was a creature like a man with a wolf's head. He had short brown hair all over him. His home was a cave dug out of the side of a steep knoll halfway up a hill. He didn't molest folk if folk didn't molest him. He was fond of fishing, and he had a small rock near the deep water, which is known to this day as the Wulver's Sting. There he would sit fishing for hour after hour. He was reported to have frequently left a few fish on the windowsill of some poor body." So not only does this seem to suggest that the Wulver was intelligent enough to fish, it doesn't mention whether there was tools or not, but it also seems like it was intelligent enough to give fish to other people, or to the people in the area, or the people on the island. So I thought that was super interesting. It seems to be a intelligent, humanoid figure, basically an intelligent werewolf, not just a beast driven on hormones and rage, as you would think. So you see, this creature could be simply going about its life, again, not pushed and pulled by the moon, attacking, tearing at flesh and whoever comes near it. This is honestly one of the off the wall descriptions of a werewolf that I've ever heard. It just goes about its day like they see it at the market or something. I don't really understand, but again, it's pretty crazy. One of the most fascinating and certainly disturbing accounts of a Wulver came from Elliot O'Donnell and his book on werewolves. Shortly after the start of the 20th century, O'Donnell interviewed a man named Andrew Warren, who had a startling story to tell. O'Donnell carefully recorded every word that Warren had to say. The priceless account reads as such: "I was about 15 years of age at the time, and had for several years been residing with my grandfather, who was an elder in the Kirk Church of Scotland. He was much interested in geology and literally filled the house with fossils from pits and caves around where we dwelt. One morning he came home in a great state of excitement and made me go with him to look at some ancient remains he had found at the bottom of a dried up lake. 'Look,' he cried, bending down and pointing at them, 'here's a human skeleton with a wolf's head. What do you make of it?' I told him I didn't know, but supposed it would be some kind of monstrosity. 'It's a werewolf,' he rejoiced. That's what it is, a werewolf. The island was once overrun with satyrs and werewolves. Help me carry it to the house. So again, even in that, you have some history of hybrid beings on the island. I did as he bid me, and we placed it on the table in the back kitchen. That evening, I was left alone in the house, my grandfather and the other members of the household having gone to the lake. For some time, I amused myself reading, and then fancying I heard a noise in the back premises, I went into the kitchen. There was no one about, and becoming convinced that it could have only been a rat that had disturbed me, I sat on the table alongside the alleged remains of the werewolf and waited to see if the noise would recommence. I was thus waiting in a listless sort of way, my back bent, my elbows on my knees, looking to the floor. Sorry, my screen messed up. Just checking on that. Um, anyway, there came a loud rat tap of knuckles on the window pane. I immediately turned in the direction of the noise and encountered, to my alarm, a dark face looking in at me. At first dim and indistinct, it became more and more complete until it developed into a perfectly defined head of a wolf terminating into the neck of a human being. It was unmistakably a wolf's face, the jaws slightly distended, the lips wreathed in a savage snarl, the teeth sharp and white. The eyes were a light green, and the ears pointed. The expression of the face was diabolically malignant, and it was, and it, and as it gazed straight at me in my horror, um, I was afraid, as also in wonderment. Um, this it did seem to notice, for a look of savage exultation crept into its eyes, and it raised one hand, a slender hand like that of a woman, though it was prodigiously long and curved fingernails, as if about to dash into the window pane. This retelling is interesting, and it doesn't say if he was attacked or not, but I'm assuming they survived to tell the story. This retelling is kind of interesting, though. One, it denotes the idea that the burial could be a thing among these creatures. If you think of Bigfoot in the same frame, then it could be a reason why it's so difficult to find any remains or remnants left behind. It is interesting to note that the second one appeared only after the remains were taken into the house. This also kind of mirrors a story I heard from a really great storyteller. He has a YouTube channel. He only goes on true accounts of the paranormal and that type of thing. A lot of dogman and werewolf stories is what he has. He's got his own website. His name is Dark Waters. That's what he goes by. He tells one account of the siege of Lockett Ranch. It's like his most famous one, where a family farm is more or less besieged over years by a pack of werewolves. It's been forever since I listened to it, but I wanted to say something happened between the family and the wolves to start the encounter. So you can kind of see the similarities between between the account above and what I just mentioned. These creatures really only seem to attack when provoked or bothered. You do hear this a lot in modern dogman and werewolf folklore. Rarely do you have reports of violence or attacks unless the creature or their living area is disturbed. There have been a few I've run into where they weren't bothering the humans until they were shot at, or again their land was disturbed, only for the people responsible to be hurt, or more often pestered, houses scratched or damaged, pets killed, even cars attacked. Um, I've definitely, I definitely do remember one account that I heard. A guy with a very good description. If you've ever seen the Underworld movies, he remembers hearing a loud noise outside his door, and he peeked through the blinds to see what can only be described as a werewolf pushing his van, basically rocking it from side to side. Now, this could be a mistaken bear incident. Obviously, that is what it sounds like. But he basically described the werewolf figure as the large African American character from the Underworld series after it transforms into a werewolf. So you're talking 7 feet at least, if not 8, huge, muscular, snarling, really horrendously scary looking creature. Um, So I mean, they're and they all fall in that same line. Any kind of dogman or werewolf story that I find, I never find like a 10 or 12 foot one. I don't I don't hear of 4 or 3 foot tall one. Children. And now come to think of it, like you really don't hear about children, child werewolves. So that's interesting. I might have to look into that. But anyway, they all seem to kind of match this 6 to 8 feet muscular upper body, slightly smaller lower legs. Just the general thought of a werewolf. That's pretty much the description it seems to be. So if there is one thing I have learned from werewolf accounts, if you see them, don't bother them. Again, they're usually 6 to 7 feet tall, muscular, and they're freaking werewolves. So just don't test your luck. Um, that, however, is vastly different than these wolvers. I feel like they may be a species subtype. That is, of course, assuming they are a random creature and that they are actually a creature. But the descriptions I can find show me that could actually be a person with hypertrichosis. Um, that most people nowadays know as the werewolf disease. It is a disorder where humans grow excessive amounts of hair, especially on the face. So, in early years, this was certainly seen as a curse or a reason to be part of a carnival sideshow. If the family was shunned by society, chose to live on their own from, far away, they would certainly appear to be one of these creatures. If you've seen someone with a, you know, thin brown hair covering their entire body and a fully, hair covered head, it would certainly be strange from far away, even up close, especially in these early days. So actually, if you look up Wulver, a lot of the pictures show the animal wearing clothes or even a full suit. So if you're seeing a furry-headed creature with short hair all over its body, and in a lot of places, or at least in a lot of places, if not all over its body, on a dock or a large rock fishing on a lake, most people are going to think the way humans do. The more outlandish, the better. Again, so it also lends to the quoted story that the person saw the wolver in a window, but it had a woman's hand, and a head-on view would not be able to tell whether the snout was really elongated. So this again could have been a person with hypertrichosis. Again, shunned from society, that definitely changes your outlook, the way you act. You could definitely be more aggressive, and so that's certainly a possibility. Again, there's just not that much information about the disease from those early days, in history. Of course, anyone that did have it, as most of us know, were in side shows and things like that in carnivals and treated as monsters. So it's completely reasonable that that's what this could be. But anyway, it's a really interesting cryptid case overall. I really feel like it was probably a case of misidentification. That and the fact that there have been no sightings in 100 years or so of these creatures. But super interesting either way. Again, a really, really cool story. Just something I happened to stumble across doing my research. I love werewolf and dogman stories. I have a werewolf tattoo, so it's kind of a big part of my research. But this was definitely one of the more interesting stories. I'd never heard of a wolver until today, until I did the research. But hope everyone enjoyed this story. Glad to be back. I know I had to take a little time off for sickness. Still looking into getting hopefully a part-time co-host, so that way if I am sick, then someone can pick up the slack and keep the episodes going, because we're still churning them out. I've still got 10 episodes written and ready to go. Let me know what you think of the new title slides. I think that's going to clean up the page a whole lot. Again, check us out on Facebook, patreon.com, all that good stuff. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.